Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 7 of the second series of the Inspire series. I have with me tonight our wonderful, wonderful children's authors who are always with me, Holly, sorry, I was thinking Holly Holland, Holly, Michelle, Josh, Karen, and Sarah. Welcome, everyone. Tonight's going to be a tiny little bit different. We're going to be talking about behind the scenes in publishing, but Josh, you're actually going to be leading this one. So I'm going to dive right in and say, Josh, over to you.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, look, this is one of my passions. I love the behind the scenes machinations of how the processes work, especially with traditional publishing. So I'm going to talk about traditional publishing here because there are many pathways that people can go down. But for me, the one that I know the most and the more familiar with is traditional publishing. So what I'll do is I'll just talk briefly about how I found my publisher, and then we'll go into a little bit more about what's the processes behind the scenes, what you need to do when you're submitting to a publisher and an agent and stuff like that. And then I'm going to throw it open to the floor here to talk about everyone else's experiences and what they really wish they knew before they submitted. Okay. So anyway, so my story is, so 10 years ago, I was actually doing little cartoons and illustrations on Facebook and on the computer, put them on Facebook, had a great Facebook page in the good old days when you can actually grow a page from like about 5 people to about 7,000 in about 4 months. It was really great back in those days. And anyway, so I thought I'm going to put all these illustrations and cartoons into a book. So I printed them off, I cut them out, and this is the original manuscript that I actually printed off, cut out, and I actually posted to 5 different publishers. And like there was Allen and Unwin, there was Penguin, Fremantle Press and stuff like that. And anyway, so I got my first rejection letter from Fremantle Press, and I was so excited that I actually bought a bottle of cheap champagne to celebrate the fact that I was actually brave enough to submit something, to send it off, and then get the rejection letter. I go, okay, cool, I've done it. Let's celebrate. $5 bottle of champagne. Anyway, and what I read somewhere is that they said, follow all the publishers that you think would be best fit for you. So I tracked down people on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And I followed them and started interacting. And there was one publisher that I started to interact with quite often, which was Big Sky Publishing. And I mentioned something in that little comment about, I've got an idea, yada, yada, yada. And they said, well, we'd love to see it. Send it to us. So I went, okay, what's your address? Bang. And then I sent them my manuscript. And then within about 3 weeks, I got a phone call saying, Josh, we really love your idea. We'd love to publish a series of books based on it. I went, oh, this is crazy times. Anyway, so the first book came out, and this is the actual physical book, The Frog in the Well, which is actually completely different from the original version, but that's the idea when you publish books. So from there, I had that first book published, then a second book published, and then they said, Josh, we're getting into kids' books. Can you write us a kids' book? And I went, I don't have kids. What do I do? And then that's when I came up with the idea of writing the book for my 8-year-old self. And then from there, everything just pivoted and changed. And 5 kids' books later, and I've got the 6th book with them at the moment, and they're hopefully, fingers crossed, going to publish it next year. But the other thing is that came into play was timing as well, because the publisher was traditionally mainly publishing military books and moving into a bit of family stuff, but they had started to branch out into gift books at that time that I sent the manuscript. So it was like they were looking for something, it popped up, and they went, yes, and then a whole opportunity. And then I just chased it from there, and it just came absolutely incredible from there. So from what I've discovered, being in this industry and working with the publishers and stuff like that, is one of the things about publishing is how the whole process works behind the scenes. Because I know before I got involved, it was like you're going to a bookshop and there's the book there, and you go, okay, well, the author must have written it, and then it just turned up in the bookshop. Easy, simple as that. And that's how a lot of people think the process is. But the fact that you have to have, you're the author, you've got to write the book, and you've got to finish the manuscript first. I don't know about you guys, but the amount of times you get people saying, oh, look, I've got an idea for a kid's book. What do I do? Write the book first, write it, and then get that idea out on paper, write it down. And then, so your whole idea is then you submit to the publisher and said, you got the publisher here, and then they go, this is fantastic, we love it. And then they send you a contract, and then you sign that contract, and then the publisher, because in traditional publishing, they literally pay for everything. They will get the editors in, they'll get the designers in, they'll help you with design the actual cover and all that sort of stuff. Then they'll do the typesetting, and they will do everything for you from that point of view. And so basically, and then they will liaise with you back and forth, making sure that you're happy, they're happy, everyone's happy. And then once the manuscript's done, like say we're talking picture books here, and if, here we go, I'm going to put the injection here. If you are not an illustrator, but you've got an idea for a children's book and you've written it, they will help you find an illustrator, or they will allocate an illustrator for you. They'll maybe give you 3 to choose from. Then you go, well, I really like that one. Or they may go, okay, well, this one, easy peasy. And then they will actually do all that for you. So you don't have to do anything as the author. They will do all that for you. And then once the manuscript's ready, it's typeset, and then it goes to the printers. And then from my perspective, they will help you do the marketing. They will help you do the promotion of it. And then it goes to the publisher has a deal with a distributor, and then the distribution does the warehousing and then does the sales to the bookshops. So I've always wondered, how do the books get to the bookshops? Does the publisher just go around in the back of the car and say, here's some books? No, it is the distribution agent will go and do that. They'll have got a warehouse of somewhere, some big warehouse full of books. And then the sales team would be the ones that would go to the publishers, the bookshops, and go, hey, we've got some fantastic new titles coming out this month. We got one by Michelle Worthington. It's going to be huge. You're going to love it. You want to buy 500 copies. It'll be perfect for you. And then they go, okay, that'll be great. I'll buy 5 copies, pop them in the shop and stuff like that. And then that's how that works. But there are lots of different machinations, like whether it's dealing with some big, huge organization like Dymocks, or whether you're dealing with independent bookshops, which is another story altogether. But it's the distribution that will get your books into bookshops. And I've from experience, you can have a great publisher, but if the distribution is not there, people don't get the books. They can't go to the bookshops, and it's not there. And it's like, originally with Big Sky Publishing, they had a small distributor, and you'd go to the, I would say in Bunbury, I'll go to the bookshop in Bunbury and go, hey, I'm a local author. Are you stocking my book? And they go, what is it? And you can see the disdain on the computer go, computer says no. And it's like, oh, and they go, who's your distributor? And they go, oh, I can't remember the name of them now. And they go, oh, yeah, no, we don't usually buy from them. And when you realize that what happens is, this is an inside story here that not many people will tell you, is that when a bookshop buys the books, like say they'll buy 5 copies of Josh Langley's new book, they will buy them in. If 4 don't sell, they can then send them back to the publisher at no cost.
Yes.
However, some distributors also cover the thing of postage to post them back. Some don't. Okay. So if you're with a distributor that still only charges the cost of the books back, but not the postage, that will mean that the bookshop will only go, I'll err on the side of caution. Instead of buying 5 books in, I'll buy 2, because it'll cost less to send back if they don't sell. So all these sort of things come into play that I'm going, I never thought this would ever happen. This is just crazy. So, but the distributor is a really pivotal point that I found in the whole process of getting your books into bookshops. Like say, for example, Big Sky now uses Simon and Schuster as their warehousing and as their sales team, and then use who was it? HarperCollins distribution to get the books out there. And everyone's heard of HarperCollins, everyone's heard. So therefore it's a big name one. And I found the difference between going from when they used a small distributor to a big one, massive. I would go into all the different bookshops in Perth and I would see my books everywhere. And that has made a huge difference to my sales and my revenue and my royalties and all that sort of stuff. So that's a really big thing to keep in mind, and that a lot of people don't realize, especially if you go down the self-publishing route, is like where you're going to get the distribution from, how you're going to get your books into bookshops. Royalties. How many times have you told people how much you earn through royalties? Oh my God, it's just like, wow. Okay. So one of the things that people talk about is like, how much do you earn? You must be millionaires. Michelle, are you a millionaire yet? Karen? Are you a
Every
millionaire?
time I go and see my tax accountant, he goes, "Oh, you're back." Like he's surprised that I've been another year in business. So no, I'm not a millionaire.
You know what? I'm gonna be open and honest here. This is my first year of giving this whole thing as a full-time gig a go, and I don't have to pay any tax this year because I was under the threshold. So there you go. If you
Same.
want to be an aspiring author, but you got to play the long game. Anyway, so I get 10% from every sale from my books. Okay. And that's usually the industry standard. You get 10% unless you're J.K. Rowling or Stephen King or something like that. Or whatever.
5% if you're not author illustrator. So as just the author, I get 5%.
Yes, you get to split it, don't you? Yes, yes, exactly. Karen, what's your situation? 5.
Usually it's 5, but with Jen it was different, wasn't it?
Yeah, I gave you 10. I was generous.
Because Jen's generous. That's why.
Yeah.
So and that's the thing. It's like when you break it down like that. So my books sell for $15. So I get $1.50 per sale. And people go, "Really? Is that all you get?" And I go, "Yeah, but the thing is I haven't had to pay any money to get it out there. Sure, I have a lot of time and energy with social media and promotion and all that sort of stuff. And that's something for another episode we can do, Jen, is about author platforms and whatever.
Yes.
But it's sort of like, I don't know. So in the UK, Sarah, what's the royalties situation there?
Yeah, it's similar. It's anything from 5 to 10, and that's the same for Europe as well. A little bit higher sometimes if you've got an agent who can negotiate and understands figures, and that's the difference. Whereas before you just say, "Oh yeah, lovely, thank you," because you've taken so long to get there.
Yeah, exactly. And Holly, what about you? Is it?
So I don't have an agent. So I've done self-publishing other than with the anthologies that I've been in. They've all been traditionally published.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But so I suppose one of the things is negotiating the actual contract. And I've got a very unsexy contract here for my 4th kids book, Being Wildly Kind. And this is where a lot of people they become unstuck, because you look at this contract and it says things like, subsidiary rights, digital rights, remainders, and all this sort of stuff, and alterations, proofs, revisions, and all these sort of things in a contract. And who gets the international rights? I mean, I think, Sarah, you're smashing it with the international rights through your agent. Have you got one agent or 2?
I've got one, but this is my second agent. So I had one.
Okay.
So this is my second one.
Okay. That's something I actually want to ask you in a minute. Is actually why you switched agents, because that's a big thing. Because if that's okay, not on the public record. And so one of the things is that people they look at their agreement that comes out, and they're also obviously the agreement is always in the favor of the publisher. Okay, and so it's almost like if you're with the Australian Society of Authors, I think you can actually run the agreement past them. If you're a member of the you can go, "Can you look any red flags? Let me know." because it's really important, because there are some really dodgy people out there and organizations out there. Most of them are all above board, but some of them, so 10% across the board usually is the main thing. But also, whether it's 7 years, I think some of the rights for 7 years or 14 years for the actual rights, and also the digital rights. And of course, if they turn your book into a screenplay or a TV show or something like that, you've got to make sure that you still get your due reward from that. So, and that is all spelled out in the contract. So go to the Australian Society of Authors and actually have your agreement checked through there.
Just one thing, what the publishers actually don't make much money either.
Well, when you consider what they have to pay for, Karen, you're right.
Any more than us, really, especially if it's small. They don't make, and they have the outlay. And
yeah, they do.
Yeah,
they've got to pay for the printing.
I get
They've got
what's
to pay
left
for the
over.
editing.
It's
Once
really
I've paid
tough,
everything out, I get what's left over.
it's a tough gig. You don't get much at all. And the bigger ones have to rely on the ones that really sell to carry the others.
Yeah.
And that's why they have even the celebrity authors and things now, because they have a profile to boost the sales. And
that's another episode altogether, Karen, having the celebrity authors doing this.
But they're hoping that will give them numbers, because they've got a way. And a new book comes out every 3 months. So it's a tough game for anybody in the industry, no matter what position you hold.
Karen, I'm gonna kick off with you then. What would you, if you could start again, what would you like to know?
The one thing I did wish I knew was when you first start out, you don't realize how much you've got to learn.
I love it. It's great.
And it's a long game thing. And you might think your writing is great, but if you don't even know how to format your manuscript and do a cover letter and follow guidelines and submit, and then I wish I'd known that then when you think your manuscript is ready, you don't send it to everybody.
4 or 5 at a time, isn't it? And that's about it.
No,
and then you wait for the rejections. And
you need to know your story that well that you know where it sits and who to target to send it. It's no good sending if you're a children's author, you can't send your manuscript to a romance publisher. Like you've got to know if it's an environmental story, say, you've got to know what publishing house would want that sort of story. It's no good sending a humorous story to someone who's after environmental things.
That's the research, isn't it?
So it's all well and good to say submit, but it doesn't work that way. And then they've got to be open. And then they get so many that when the door opens, they get hammered again. So you just got to keep going and getting better at craft and letting go of that fear. I don't really care about rejection anymore. I think it's part of it. I mean, sometimes you may get disappointed, but if you're in it for the long haul, you just go, well, I'll move on to the next story, and hopefully I'm getting better with every word I write and I'm getting more knowledge. I guess it's different if you're in a bigger market like Holly and Sarah, you're in probably a bigger market because you tap into Europe and things, but we're quite a small market unless your publisher branches out overseas. You don't have huge print runs and you've only got so many to market too. And then new ones are coming out. So you can see how hard it really is, which is why I think a lot of people hope to be published overseas because it's bigger market, but then I don't know how you get paid when you get published that way either. I don't know because I've only
Tell me about it, Sarah. I'll tell you what, Karen, I've had my Find Your Creative Mojo book was re-released through Penguin Random House Southeast Asia.
Wow.
And for some reason, my publisher here in Australia has lost the contact. And I'm been going, because I'm getting people on Instagram saying, love your book, fantastic, it inspired me to start drawing or writing or whatever. And so I know people are buying it over there, but it's just like, where's the royalties? Where's the thing? Anyway, that's another thing for another day. That's another thing. So I was going to say, Sarah, did you go to a traditional publisher first or go to an agent?
I probably did it completely backwards. I self-published first by
No,
myself.
that's all right. That's good. Yeah.
Then approached many agents, found an agent, and then I was published traditionally in the UK, but at that point I'd already was starting to be published traditionally abroad. So my self-publishing book by myself. So through my self-publishing book, The Heavy Bag, I've managed to do the deals with traditional publishers across Europe, US, wherever. But then with my agent, I had my first traditional publishing gig in the UK. Like I said, I've since changed agents. I have another agent who's actually based in France, but she still submits for the UK market, the French market for France, but she's also going beyond as well. So we're submitting out to Europe. So it's a little bit different for me. So although I've been published traditionally with all these different publishing houses, it's been very different experiences for me, obviously, because first of all, physically, I'm not there. You know, I can't be in Romania and Turkey and Iceland or wherever. So it's a slightly different experience for me. But what do I wish I knew now before? I think you've both spoken about it. I think it's definitely about the long game, and it's definitely about understanding that the children's book industry is a business. And I definitely went into it very naive. You know, those kind of things where people do Instagram, social media versus reality. And it's so stark, isn't it? There's that difference. And I think that's very much what it's the experience that we have, because we go into it as creatives and we've written these children's books. We've got these ideas. We want to just give our books to children and our stories. And then you go into this industry and it's like, whoa, this is so industry led. And it's about, as you mentioned before, Josh, timings and catalogs and you know, it's closed doors all the way, even to the very end. So even if you very first get that first editor who says, I love this actually, and you think, yeah, I'm going to go and buy my cheap champagne and celebrate. Don't, because what we don't know is that editor may love that book, but they've then got to get it past a pre-acquisitions meeting, an acquisitions meeting. Then there's like 10 editors and they've all got to agree. And it's just, and then there's the finance department and do they like it? And there's so many things. So my thing is, you've got to be in it for the long run, because I know a couple of authors who have written a book and they've tried to get it published traditionally, and it's like taken a year, because these things can take a year, and they've eventually at the last hurdle had no, and they've just shelved the book and said, I'm not doing this anymore, I can't do this anymore. That's such a shame, because we all know that if you're in it for the long haul, and if you do realize really how the whole industry works, and it's not about you, and it's not that you can't write well, and it's not that you haven't told a good story, it's actually none of that. It is really about what that publisher needs in that moment, on that day, who's behind that computer, what they're being told is the latest trend, what they're being told they don't have enough of on their books in that time. So it's all about timings. So just keep going through and keep working through, because otherwise, if you don't understand or don't take from what we're saying today about how the industry works, you probably will dishearteningly stop. But don't, keep going, because it isn't about you.
Michelle does something really cool to help emerging writers, and I've benefited by submitting, and you create anthologies that support charities. Would you? And so you're not, your work goes to the benefit of the charity, but it also means your name has something published behind it. Do you want to talk a bit about that, Michelle? Because it's a real heart thing that you do, and it is generous, and you've supported like I think you've done it for 6 years now.
Mm. Yeah, so the anthologies kind of came when I was doing a business course, actually, to kind of get my head in the game a little bit more when it came to the publishing industry. And they asked everybody a question, and there was people there from all different businesses, and they said, what is it that your clients want? And I mean, I don't have clients, but everyone wants to get published. So we initially started the anthology as a way that aspiring authors could have a little taste of what it was like to be published. So you have to submit, and then, you know, once you submit, we sign a contract, and then once you sign the contract, you go through the edit, and then once we have the edit, then we go through and show you the layout and design and the cover and talk about marketing and promotion. So it's a very, very gentle introduction, because I guess the thing that I didn't know, wish I had known when I started this back, you know, I started trying to get published in 2001, and it took me 10 years to get my first book published, was that as much as we like to say that the children's book industry is light and fluffy and helpful, it's actually like Mad Max meets the Hunger Games. Like it's about alliances. It's about, you know, dodging bullets. It's about, you know, sometimes having to go and hide in a cave for a little bit just to survive for another year. Like, it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal, but it's a business, like everyone was saying. And I think anything that I can do to give people a little bit more of a gentler introduction, I guess, than I had is why we did the anthology. But it's also about teaching people that they have to advocate for themselves. So nobody is going to come knocking on your door and saying, do you have a book in your head that I might be able to publish? Like, it's really that you have full ownership on whether you are successful or whether you're not successful.
Yeah, I like that, Michelle. What about Holly? Your experiences, and what would you like to have known before you started this journey?
Well, I did self-publish, and I had no idea how much marketing was required. I think that would be the biggest thing. You know, I was thinking about what all things would I change. Really, probably not a lot. Mostly just to be aware of that. And another thing I'll say is sometimes you'll find different countries may be more supportive of your writing. Not to let, I mean, we've got the world is just at our fingertips. So really, like I've been very supported by the UK and Australia as far as contacts and really everything. So I have really leaned in those two directions, because that's, you know, I've found like such willingness to help, and I've just learned so much. Now I've met others, you know, and I've worked with a lot of others in particular in the US and a few in Canada. But I really have appreciated, you know, the kind of support that I've received from the others as well. So it's and there just is so much to learn, really.
But that's a really, really important point, Holly. It's the connections you make that'll make or break you, whether you're going to stay in it the long haul or not. And the fact that I'm like connected with all of you it is a big plus. And I'm grateful to Jennifer for organising it. And also like Michelle, we've had a connection now for a while. And I think when I first started out, I did a little, you tried to work on my confidence with me because that's a big thing for me. And then I knew of Josh and I thought, oh, he's pretty cool. He's over there. Why don't we invite him in? I want to see what he's like. And then I got to meet Holly and Sarah, and just to have that perspective from the other side of the world. But I went to a writing retreat with Elisa Darlington when I first started, because there was nothing down here, and there still isn't around me unless I travel. But I quite like it now. But Elisa said that these people you're here with will be who you grow with. And if you're in it in the long haul, that Jennifer's been growing me. She's got me doing this. Whereas if I was just operating on my own and didn't have that connection, would I be doing this? No. And then, like, if I have some harebrained idea, I'll go, like I got interviewed by an American gangster, and said to Jennifer, is it all right if an American gangster interviews me on his radio show because I'm a children's author? And stuff like that. And then Michelle, just to have someone, say you can write, and then have the opportunity to submit and actually get into an anthology is good. And then to hear Josh put a spotlight on how things are and how, it's not just you that feels this way, because you think it's just you, but we all feel it, but we don't say it. It's like what Holly said, and it's so important. We're connected. And Sarah, how you've built your connections.
Yeah.
And just by being ballsy and taking that leap and doing that book.
Well, I think also because thank you. But I think I kind of cottoned onto what Michelle was saying, that when you get into industry, you realize that they are all built on connections. It's all who they know, who they're talking to, and that makes it hard for you to go in. So then I thought, okay, so why don't we as authors build our own connections? And it just so happens that the author community happens to be an incredibly supportive community. Like, I'm honestly not just saying that. There's enough room for all of our books, and we all get that. We all understand that. Nobody is trying to take the limelight from anybody else or the bookshelf space from anybody else. So honestly, the first thing I would say to you, start connecting with other authors before you start this journey, because it will help you, and you will learn that the whole industry is built on connections. It's who you know, it's who they know, it's who the publishers know, from that publishing house to that publishing house, and it's really hard to get in unless you do have connections. And then the plus side of that, of you having your own author connections, is the support and the confidence that it brings you, because that's where it needs to be.
One word for that: Squibby.
Yeah. Yes.
Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. Google it, find it, search it, join your local chapter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you also need to remember that because everything's so tight and interconnected, everybody talks. So you might not think anybody knows who you are, but
they do.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. Well, everyone, I think we've sort of covered so much. There is so much more we could cover. We could cover the best way to submit and how much to do research, and Google is your best friend for doing an author bio and all that sort of stuff. But I think we've sort of come up to the end here, and I'm going to pass it back to Jen. I think it's been a very informative episode. Thank you so much, everyone.
It has. It's been really informative, and once again, there's so much we can talk about another day, stemming from all the little bits and pieces we have spoken about. It's really interesting. And tonight we've only really talked about the traditional. We've touched on the self-publishing, but mostly traditional. So yeah, maybe season 3, something else we can tap into. But yeah, it's been a really informative. So thanks everyone for sharing your knowledge. There's always something to learn, isn't there? It's also interesting. So thank you everyone, and I will see you again next week for our final episode where we are talking about the banned books. So I'll chat to you all then. Bye.